Do your nightstands need a makeover? Well, let's do it. Here's a pair of nightstands that I bought on Facebook Marketplace for $35. They have got a lot of scratches, the white paint is coming off of them, and they have some really old-fashioned drawer pulls on them. So let's give them a makeover. First thing I did is I wiped it down and got all the grime and dirt and crud off of it, and then I took off the hardware. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find hardware that has the same size holes so I don't have to fill or drill the holes. Once all the drawers were out, I went ahead and gave the inside of it a good cleaning. You want to make sure you get all the dust out and wipe it down so that it not only looks good on the outside, but smells fresh on the inside for your new buyers. This is probably my least favorite part of the process, but it's very critical in terms of making sure that you get a beautiful finish and a good sale. Here you can see how dirty that water was once I finished cleaning it. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking the wood finish off of the top, the old coat of varnish. I want to see if the wood's in good condition so I can keep the top natural. I'm using a carbide scraper, but you could use a sander, you could use a chemical paint stripper. Notice I do have my mask and glasses on because when you scrape like this, you do throw little particles of the old finish up into the air. And so you always want to make sure that you're safe. I happen to love using a carbide scraper. I think it's a good workout and it's a nice way to get the top of it ready for sanding. Once I had that top layer scraped off, I go over it with my sander. This helps make sure that the surface is perfectly smooth. It also buffs out any scratches or little dents. And I do the top and I'm going to also do the sides here. I'm not too worried about getting a perfectly smooth finish on the sides. I kind of like it when they have a little bit of character. Now let's look at those drawer fronts. I'm using a 120 grit sandpaper and you can see that that old paint is just coming right off. Now I'm going to be painting these, so I don't need to actually get all the paint off. I don't need to sand down to bare wood. I just want to get any of the particles that are loose and chipping off of it so that they don't come off once I put my new layer of paint on. It's so satisfying to watch that paint just disappear. All right, I'm going to do the same thing to the sides. What I'm doing to the sides is really what I call scuff sanding. I'm going over it with 120 grit, and my goal is just to remove kind of the very top shiny layer, whether it was a varnish or polyurethane, so that my paint will have something to stick to. I'm also using my carbide scraper to get into some of the smaller tight areas. I really just want to go over the entire piece and give it a nice smooth finish. These are the products we're using today by Dixie Belle. I want to thank Dixie Belle for sending me these products to try out. We're using their Pristine Clean here to go over the pieces now that they've been sanded and make sure we get all of the dust, any remaining bits of dirt or grime off in order to prepare them for the next step. Now, I want to make sure that it's a quality paint job, so I'm trying Dixie Belle's Bonding Boss. This is a primer, and the goal of this primer is to stick to the furniture and give the paint something to adhere to so that the paint will not peel or flake off once it's dry. The primer also gives you a nice uniform color that you'll be able to start with. I've decided that we are going to go ahead and repaint these nightstands in a nice bright white. So applying the Bonding Boss, which has a white color, is actually probably going to save me some money in terms of not having to use as many layers of the white paint to get a nice solid color. I'm sure some people are saying, what, you're taking white nightstands and painting them white, but we're giving them a brand new look while we're at it. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to apply the Bonding Boss to the drawers, make sure that we are going in the direction of the wood grain across the front of them. I'm not necessarily looking for a super smooth finish on these. So if there are a few brush marks, I just want them to look like they're part of the wood grain, which is why I always go from the long direction, one side to the other, to make sure that I'm following what would be the natural grain of the wood. All right, you're supposed to let this dry for 24 hours. So, okay, I let it dry overnight and then I added a second coat, let that dry overnight. And now it's time to get ready to start putting our paint on. I have my little sanding block here and I'm going to use 120, actually, I'm sorry, this is 220 grit sandpaper just to go over and give it a gentle sanding. I don't really want to remove any of the primer. I just want to remove any areas where maybe I got a little heavy or if I had a drip or if something settled on them overnight. This ensures that you get a nice smooth finish with your paint. Once I've sanded them, I mist them with some water and wipe them off really good with a cloth. And here we go now with our Silk All-in-One paint by Dixie Belle. This is a nice bright white. Now, an all-in-one paint does include a primer. However, when you're working on a piece like these nightstands that had that slick finish on the side of them, you still want to use a primer. Okay, here we go now, getting ready to do the bodies of the nightstand. Same thing, I go over them gently with the sandpaper, wipe them off to make sure that there's no dust, and then we get ready to apply our paint. This is such a wonderful product. It goes on super smooth, gives really nice color saturation. I'll probably only have to do about 2 coats of this, maybe 3, depending on how heavy I put it on. It's kind of hard to see because I'm putting white over white, but I am putting it on in nice long strokes. I'll go in and do some of the kind of the corners, but then I'll come back and go over the piece from top to bottom to get one nice long stroke to help avoid brush marks. Then we're going to come around to paint the front. I have these old milk crates that I've had for years that are just perfect for putting nightstands on. I also love to put them upside down for at least 1 coat of the paint. This ensures that I don't miss any spots and it just helps me get nice, even coverage. You can see I sprayed a little bit of water there on my furniture. I live in Arizona and it's still really hot, even though it's supposed to be fall. The water just helps keep the paint from drying too fast. Now, when I'm doing something like this that has a scalloped edge on the front, I'm going to make sure that I go ahead and paint the underside of that scallop. That way, when people are moving the piece or someone's laying down on the floor, they see a nice white finish instead of the raw wood. All right, getting ready to do our second coat. I love that first paint dip. You can see it's such a pretty color. And now we're putting our second and final coat of this Silk All-in-One paint on the drawers. Nice long strokes, helps prevent brush marks, and ensures that you get a nice, smooth, even finish. It's looking beautiful. Okay, there we go. Now we have the bodies painted and the all-important scratch test, and that paint is not going anywhere. So it's time to apply our stain to the tops. I'm going to give them a real quick once over with my sanding pad using a 400 grit sandpaper just to make sure I've got a super smooth finish. And then I'm applying some tape and plastic sheeting to protect the bodies of the dressers. I do usually paint first and then varnish second, but you can do it in either order. So I'm kind of testing it. I've never used this product before. This is Voodoo Gel Stain by Dixie Belle, and this is the color Tobacco Road, and it's a really nice neutral brown. Gel stains are great because you can layer them. So the first coat is kind of the original natural look of the stain, but if you want something darker, you can just keep going over it with additional coats until you get the color that you want. I do nice thin patches starting from the top, moving down to the bottom, making sure that you always go all the way from left to right, following the natural grain of the wood. This way, if you get one patch that's a little bit lighter or a little bit darker, nobody's going to notice because it's just going to mix in with the natural wood grain. And this stain is really bringing out the beautiful grain on the tops of these nightstands. All right, once we've got the top finished, then you just come in around the edges, and it's getting a little windy out here. I probably should move inside. You do want to try to do this in a place where you don't have any dust or dirt that will fly into them. I have a garage full of projects at the moment, so I'm doing them outside and just crossing my fingers that nothing goes wrong. Finish up this side right here. I'm using just a little lint-free rag to put this on. You can use a brush and then take it off with a rag, but gel stains I like to put on with a rag. There's also sponge applicators. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But look at that. Doesn't that look beautiful? There are some scratches that came out when I put the stain on, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to get those off in just a moment. Right. So what I'm doing now is I'm going in with 220 grit sandpaper and just sanding down where those scratches were until I feel like I have removed them from the surface of the wood. There were a couple other spots that I also did a light resanding, and then just coming in with more of the gel stain. So we're going to put that on here in the corner, rub it in nicely, and then start following the direction of the wood grain again. Had another little spot I redid right there. You can see this is a very forgiving product that if you make a mistake, you just go in, sand it off, and come back in with some more. And I love that about water-based products. Okay, so we're going to get that smooth. Look at that. The scratches are gone. Fabulous. And beautiful wood stain. All right, final step is just to apply hardware. I have some new hardware. It has a brushed brass, sorry, can't say brass finish that I picked up off of Amazon. I think a 10 pack was like $20, so it's not expensive hardware, but it does have a nice feel to it, and it really looks much better than the old-fashioned hardware that was on these to start with. So let's apply our hardware. I'll go in and I will apply some furniture oil to the insides of the drawers. And I did apply 2 coats of polyacrylic to the tops. So here's where we started and here's where we ended right now. Sleek, clean, and modern, perfect for your home. I bought them for $35 and I'll probably sell them for around $250. Please subscribe and like for more of my furniture makeovers.